Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Gossip Finance. I'm your host, Alacias Inger.
And I'm Duncan Sandlin. How's it going today, Lace?
Fabulous. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. You ready for today's show? Exciting stuff.
Absolutely. So, what's been happening in the news, Duncan?
Well, we've got a lot of news to go over. We got the Chinese spy balloon, disinflation with the Fed chair, and still raising rates, and what the Republicans want to do with the debt ceiling, and how that probably will go, and Marjorie Taylor Greene having some difficulty in her committee jobs now that she has them. And then we've got some clips to go over. So let's start out with, Chinese spy balloons. So Chinese spy balloon was traveling over the U.S. There was a bunch of big arguments about it. Biden finally said, okay, shoot it down. Military said, let's wait to shoot it down over water because we don't want it falling on people. So they did shoot it down. So here's just a little news report clip of the odd Chinese spy balloon.
Woo! The Pentagon says American fighter jets shot down the Chinese spy balloon just off the Carolina coast on Saturday. Shortly after, President Biden said he ordered the move against the balloon as its cross-country flight over much of the U.S. widened a growing rift between the U.S. and China.
They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it. I told them to shoot it down.
Oh, Wednesday.
On Wednesday.
But the recommendation
they said to me, let's wait till the safest place to do it.
Two Navy ships, including one equipped with a heavy crane for payload recovery efforts, are in the vicinity. In a statement, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said the U.S. Northern Command brought down the surveillance balloon over the water off the coast of South Carolina in U.S. airspace. Earlier this week, it was spotted over Montana, home to sensitive military sites, then Missouri, and continued to head east to the Carolinas. The balloon incident prompted Secretary of State Antony Blinken to postpone his planned visit to Beijing this weekend.
So, fun stuff with that. So, why the Chinese have a spy balloon going over our military bases? Probably not good. I don't know what their deal is.
Well, thank you for that, Duncan.
I know that was a sound analytical.
That was some really high-class analysis. I see that all of your time in the political science department has really served you well.
It's paid off. Well, the thing about it is I don't know why China would want to go to war with us. We're their biggest customer. Their economy would collapse without us, and vice versa. Where are we going to buy all of our stuff?
I was going to say, if the American people can't consume products made by the Chinese, whatever will we do?
I don't know. The world would collapse. So I don't know.
We might have less plastic in our landfills.
Yeah. I don't know if they're just rattling the saber or whatever. They're just testing us or messing with us or whatever. But they sometimes like to do that for negotiating purposes. Right. The other thing that's interesting about this, and I'll bring this back real quick. So the Chinese spy balloon, this is not the first one. This is actually, let's see if we can get this here. So Chinese balloons flew over the U.S. 3 times during Trump's administration. So 3 times over Trump. This is the second one under Biden. There was one before this. This is the one I guess he became really aware of and shot it down. And the Chinese government, this is the People's Republic of China, basically, what was their statement? They had a stupid statement here. They basically said it was they said it was a weather balloon.
What?
Then why is it going over our military facilities? And then also, what was it? Blew off course. Yeah, right.
They care very much about the weather patterns in the U.S. military.
Right. You're gonna love this. So they asked Trump about this because there were 3 of them under Trump. Defense officials pointed out. And then Trump's response was, the Chinese balloon situation is a disgrace, just like the Afghanistan horror show and everything else surrounding the grossly incompetent Biden administration. And then he said, they're only good at cheating in elections and disinformation. And now they're putting out that a balloon was put up by China during the Trump administration in order to take the heat off the slow-moving Biden fools. China had too much respect for Trump for this to have happened, and it never did. Just fake information, disinformation.
You know, it scares me you do a pretty decent Trump,
It's
complete with weird lip pooching.
you gotta do the hands.
Right. The sort of flailing parallel hands.
Yeah, I don't know. He's playing the accordion or something. Anyway, yeah, but, so what's funny to me about this whole thing, since we're finance people, we have to think about this financially. How much is a spy balloon? I mean, you're talking about World War I technology here. I had a weather balloon from the 60s, basically, with maybe some cameras on it.
Right.
Apparently, it was about the length of like 3 school buses, end to end, the diameter, not the diameter, and so it was big. But it's like, still, you're talking about basically a weather balloon, so it can't have cost that much money, right? But because we're the United States, and Biden's got his cool aviator Ray-Bans on, what did we shoot it down with? We shot it down with an F-22 Raptor. It's the most expensive fighter jet ever built in the history of mankind. This thing has
Wow.
vector jets on it, and they shot it down with a missile. It's a freaking balloon. You could have shot it down with guns. But no, we had to use a missile.
Take that, weather balloon. Take that. Rain on our military base, why don't ya? Yeah.
Really, at this point, I like it because it's very American. It's a total dick measuring contest at that point. Because what do we do?
Right? It's like the equivalent. It's like the equivalent to the old crappy little pickup that has the huge lift kit to make it like ginormously tall that like most people can't even hardly get in without a stepladder. Yeah, kind of like that.
Well, no, I mean, just to give you, so the F-22 Raptor, just by itself, they're almost $150 million a piece per plane. Okay, if you add in what it costs to do the R&D and the design, they're about $334 million a piece. Right?
Thank goodness.
On top of that, just to do one flight in that plane with fuel and everything cost about $70,000. That's takeoff, loiter time, and landing. That's one flight, 70 grand. Just
The
to get.
in-flight meal better be phenomenal for 70 grand. I mean, I can't even imagine what I would expect them to be serving me for that kind of money.
Well, plus you got to factor in training of the pilot. You got to factor in, we have to do all the radar, and I don't even know if we still use AWACS or whatever it is, but yeah, you have to factor all that in and targeting, right? Because they're not targeting the balloon from the plane. They're targeting it from other satellites and other planes, right? I mean, those are fire and forget weapons, most of them. So all that, so incredibly expensive. So China sends out this shitty weather balloon with cameras on it, and we throw out hundreds of millions of dollars worth of American equipment just to gun it down. You got to be the pilot, and they're sitting there thinking, this is a stupid mission.
I mean, could have just gone after that thing with a BB gun and called it a day.
I spent how long in flight school for this shit? We could have shot it down with a surface-to-air missile. Fuck. So.
Wow. Okay.
No, it cracks me up. It's the what was the it was a long time ago, but they did the home run derby. Are you familiar with baseball? So in baseball they do this, they get some of the best hitters in Major League Baseball, and they do what's called the home run derby. And a lot of times they'll do it at like Fenway or something like that, and they'll get, pitches, and they get so many strikes and balls, but it's how many home runs can they hit. And they're lobbing the ball in. It's not like they're trying to screw them up, but They did this 1 year, and I'm like, this is just an example of America and how freaking decadent of a culture we are. 1 year they did it where they hosted the Home Run Derby, and it was on a U.S. aircraft carrier. So all these major league big time hitters are on a U.S. aircraft carrier, and they had a batting cage set up in the aircraft carrier, right? And the batting cage was inflatable. It was an inflatable batting cage. And you're sitting there thinking, why do you have an inflatable cage on one of the largest boats ever built? Do you think that thing is really going to sink a U.S. aircraft carrier? And then you think, okay, they're just going to hit the balls into the ocean. Oh, well, right? And the balls will just sink. Oh, no. They had a bunch of guys on jet skis with guys on the back with baseball gloves to catch the balls. Talk about...
And you just can't make this stuff up.
You can't... The amount of time and money and expenditure for this. They've got cameras all over the place. They've got helicopters flying over filming this. I mean, you're sitting there thinking the amount of time and money and expenditure that went into this. Yeah, fuck the Romans. They got nothing on us, man.
Right.
That's what this reminds me of. You go to the most expensive and advanced fighter jet ever built by mankind to shoot down a fucking weather balloon. I mean,
All right.
it's like your dad popping your birthday balloons with his AR-15. It's just ridiculous.
Right.
Oh man. So,
like using a machine gun to shoot at squirrels in the backyard or something.
It's just...
like, what are you doing?
I was almost tempted to go get like a little balloon just to give you an example of how ridiculous this is. Oh man. So moving on. Speaking of deflating things. Oh my gosh, let's talk about the federal chair and what their decision was regarding raising rates for inflation. See, segue.
All right.
Segue.
All right, so what's happening with rates?
We deflated a balloon. Now we're gonna...
Duncan, it stops being funny when you explain it.
Yeah, I know. So here's the federal chair. Before we get into this, let me just give you some background. So last week, the Fed met. They decided to raise interest rates 0.25% one more time. They might do it again. We'll see. But they were fairly optimistic because job growth was up quite a bit. I think the job growth was, they had 511 new jobs, but the projection was 188,000. So that was a huge sign. Plus, inflation has gone down, and it's continuing to go down at a pretty good pace. All right. So this is called disinflation, right? It means we're not lowering the prices of things, but the rate of inflation is going down. So this is good when you have high inflation. What they panic about is things like deflation, where the rate goes negative, because if it starts going negative, then it really damages the market going forward and hiring. But anyway, all these things are really good signs. So things are going well. So Federal Chair Powell is going to explain kind of why they're continuing to raise rates even though things are looking good. And that's basically the question here.
And thanks as usual. So I just wanted to connect a couple dots here. The statement made a number of changes that seem to be saying things are getting better. You're saying inflation has eased. That's new. You've taken out references to the war in Ukraine as causing price increases. You've taken out references to the pandemic. You've eliminated all the reasons that you said prices were being driven higher. Yet that's not mapping to any change in how you describe policy. We still have ongoing increases to come. So I'm wondering, why is that the case? And does it have more to do with uncertainty around the outlook, or more to do with you not wanting to give a very overeager market a reason to get ahead of itself and overreact?
So I guess I would say it this way. We can now say, I think, for the first time,
that the disinflationary process has started. We can see.
What was that?
I said I appreciated that question.
That's
Way to just cut straight to the point. Yeah, because sometimes you kind of wonder that, right? Are they just doing this to, I don't know, stave off some reactions?
Right. So what's the strategy here? Things are
Right.
things are looking good. There's really no reason for you to raise it. What's the thinking behind it? And we kind of talked a little bit about this last week with Davos, which was the thinking behind it was still is they want to quell the labor market some, because right now wages are growing because labor has more control and more leverage to ask for more money. Now that
God forbid the worker have any control over anything.
Right, but that raises inflation too. So that's where he's worried about it. So let's see what he says.
And we see it really in goods prices so far. Goods prices is a big sector. This is what we thought would happen since the very beginning, and now here it is actually happening. And for the reasons we thought, it's supply chains, it's shortages, and it's demand revolving back towards services. So this is a good thing. But that's around a quarter of the PCE price index, core PCE price index. So the second sector is housing services, and that's driven by very different things. And as I mentioned, with housing services, we expect, and other forecasters expect, that measured inflation will continue moving up for several months, but will then come down, assuming that new leases continue to be soft. And we do assume that. So we think that that's sort of in the pipeline. We actually see disinflation in the goods sector, and we see it in the pipeline for two sectors that amount to a little less than half. So this is good, and we note that when we say inflation is coming down, this is good. We expect to see that disinflation process will be seen, we hope soon, in the core goods the core services ex housing sector that I talked about. We don't see it yet. It's 7 or 8 different kinds of services. Not all of them are the same, and we have a sense of what's going on in each of those different subsections. Probably the biggest part of it, probably 60% of that is research would show is sensitive to slack in the economy, and so the labor market will probably be important. Some of the other ones, the labor market's not going to be important. Many other factors will drive it. In any case, we don't see disinflation in that sector yet, and I think we need to see that. It's the majority of the core PCE index, which is the thing that we think is the best predictor of.
Okay, so just to simplify it. So the guy asked a great question, which is indicators are good, right? It looks like headwinds, looks like things are actually doing well, right? This idea that we were going to have a recession, it doesn't seem to want to pan out because it didn't happen, not in any real sense. So he's saying, okay, well, yeah, you're right. Goods are good. The price of goods, we're seeing good disinflation, very successful, good stuff all around, right? Housing, we think, is going to start to see some disinflation in the cost of housing, which is also really good. What we're concerned about is services. We think services, the inflation rates are too high. Right? What he's saying is wage growth is too high right now. So we want to keep this going until wage growth comes down to a more manageable level. Now, there are a couple arguments you can make. You can make the argument that, that would affect inflation and that could be negative to the economy. Right? However, if that's the case, then why are goods and housing potentially going to come down if it's a negative to the economy? And why are we seeing the job growth numbers we're seeing? On the other side of that coin, the argument could be, well, you're just keeping it artificially high because there's interest in lowering the wage growth so that employers and businesses can have more control over the amount they pay employees. And that argument would be is if you're doing it that way, you can't say that. It's hard to say that, is Jerome Powell. But the argument for that would be is, well, we're doing that even though I know it's going to hurt the workers, but it's better for general business growth in the country overall. So I'm looking at a bigger economic picture. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you're kind of fucking over the workers to get that done. And then the third argument, the counter argument to that would be is, you don't need to do that if things are going well, which is kind of related to the first argument, which is if things are going well, what's the problem with seeing moderate wage growth? Now, if it was excessive, if wage growth was like 20%, then yeah, I could see some really big shifts and damage to the economy, right? But if it's 6 or 7 or 8%, and it does that for another year or two, is that really a huge detriment? Especially since it's already been artificially low for decades. So that's just kind of what they're doing. I mean, there are lots of different arguments you can make on that. My argument would basically be is they probably could tamper down on interest rates. You'd see more growth in the stock market, which is going to help more people with their retirement, their savings, and you would support wage growth overall on the short term. Not necessarily the long term, but at least on the short term. But right now, you have a lot of labor where they're trying to unionize and things like that, I think it's probably in the best interest to let them do that, because the last time we did that, those were the biggest growth decades, in our country's history, is when people had unions and pensions and things like that. That would be
And what was the time frame in which you're talking about?
The 50s up till early, 1980. I mean, granted, it didn't translate to non-white people, or especially women too. But still, the people, white men had unions and things like that, and they could ask for better wages. That's the kind of eras we developed the 5-day work week, tamp down on child labor laws, things like that. But that comes with having organized labor, which I think has been kind of a scare if you're still thinking in sort of like trickle economics terms, right? Trickle down. And I don't know Powell's complete position, and I'm sure he's pressured to do certain things, but I don't know that it's devastating, but even raising interest rates, I don't think it's going to solve that problem for them, that it's going to necessarily taper down labor that much, especially after a pandemic, because you're talking about a pretty severe shortage in the labor market and a pretty severe cultural shock to the world, not just our country. So I don't know where it's going to go, but I just wanted to kind of throw in that sort of argument on that. So, yeah, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to throw in there.
No.
I mean, I really don't have an answer or a definitive solution. I'm just telling you there's just several ways you can look at this. Kind of hard to know until it happens. But the other big issue that we have going on is the debt ceiling crisis, where the Republicans are refusing to raise the debt ceiling.
The sky is falling.
Boom. Now, understand, we covered this last time. The debt ceiling, the way it works is we already sat down, our government already sat down and said, this is the budget, this is what we're going to spend. And then we got to a point where we needed to raise the debt ceiling, right? Borrow more money, right? Issue more debt, right? So we can pay for that. We've already paid this. This is already money that we owe. The argument now is, do we raise our debt limit so that we can actually pay our bills? If we don't, then we default on our credit, which could be economically a global catastrophe. Well, it could be. It would be at that point. But the Republicans are doing it because they want to cut spending and stuff. But what's funny about this is it's kind of unclear what they want to cut. So let's see what they're saying about what it is that they want to cut. So first I'm going to look at, this is CNBC. It's a show called Squawk Box. And they have Joe Scarborough on, who's also on CNBC. But Joe Scarborough's a fiscal conservative. So we're going to have, this isn't Joe, this is whoever the host of Squawk Box is. But let's see what Joe Scarborough says.
Joining us is Joe Scarborough, the host of MSNBC's Morning Joe. Joe, the other Joe, that is, it's great to see you. We don't have the other Joe this morning, so we're thrilled to have you. And specifically because I think we're all trying to figure out what's actually happening in Washington, D.C. right now, between the relationship between Kevin McCarthy and the White House and that Biden meeting, and what it means for the debt ceiling and everything else. What are you hearing?
Well, we actually had a positive meeting yesterday, which actually should be reassuring for not only people in Washington, but also on Wall Street. We've seen before where people will walk out of the White House, have a meeting with the president, then have some snarky side swipe. That didn't happen yesterday. Kevin McCarthy came out, talked about a respectful meeting with Joe Biden. Joe Biden did the same. These are two people who obviously understand it's not in their best interest. It's not in their party's best interest. It's not in the economy's best interest for them to have an explosion over the debt ceiling. Right now, though, make no mistake, they have two completely different positions. Kevin McCarthy is saying what Republicans like myself used to say whenever we were going to vote for the debt ceiling. Yes, we'll vote for the debt ceiling. There have to be some structural changes. The Democratic presidents usually don't like to go that way, correctly pointing out we're not paying for debt that we're going to accumulate in the future. We're paying for debt that's already been accumulated on America's credit card. We've got to pay it off. We'll see what happens. McCarthy's margin of error, though, is so small that I find it hard to believe that Democrats aren't going to be able to get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Republicans, especially from those Biden districts, that aren't going to want the economy to blow up. So at the end of the day, they're going to strike a deal. I don't think they're going to blow up the economy. At the same time, it's going to be really a political high wire act for Kevin McCarthy.
But is this going to be
Okay, so a couple things he points out, a couple things he didn't point out. So typically it's Republicans who withhold the debt ceiling. Well, always. It's the Democrats. The Democrats have never done this, and they always do it when there's a Democratic president. Right, because they want to make cuts, but they want to be able to blame the president, right? And if it's their president, they don't want to blame him. So he's kind of missed that point, right? The other point is they'll talk about spending cuts and stuff. Typically what they want is cut Social Security, has always been on the bill. Cut Medicare, Medicaid, right? Those are the big ones. The funny thing that he says about this, and he misses that point, is Social Security and Medicare are self-funded. They're not in the budget. They're separate funds. So cutting them doesn't really save the budget. What it does is it screws the American people over who've paid into it. Right? So that's not really a solution here, right? So there's part of it there. The other part of it he points out, which is true, is in this scenario, Kevin McCarthy, who we saw come out there, and we'll see here again, so the Republicans have a majority in the House of Representatives, but they only have a majority of like 8 people or 9 people, something small. So there's a good chance that the Democrats can get 6 or 7 Republicans to flip in the House, and this goes away. So McCarthy doesn't really have a whole lot of leverage here to do anything. Right now, it's all just kind of BS. So nothing will probably come out of this. This is sort of what he's pointing out. But he's going to ask him this other question real quick, and I want to get through this because this is a good point here.
be a 3 minutes? Is this going to be a 3 minutes to midnight situation, Joe? And the other piece of it is how much control does Kevin McCarthy have over some members of his party?
Yeah, it's always a 3 minutes till midnight situation. They always wait till the last possible second because McCarthy can't move too quickly. I mean, if McCarthy moves too quickly, then you're going to see the 5, 6, 7 Republican going out and ending his speakership. So they're going to exact some pain from Joe Biden, probably from the markets, but then they're going to get pressured from their contributors at the end of the day, and they're going to do what they always do. They're going to fold at the end, but they're going to make Joe Biden, they're going to make the markets, they're going to make everybody sweat it out a little bit first.
So
Businesses nationwide are switching.
So basically, the Republicans, they could probably flip him right now, is what he's saying. Enough Republicans to drop this whole thing, but McCarthy's not going to bring it to a vote until the last second. Why? Because he's going to want to put as much pressure as he can on Biden and make Biden look bad, even at the expense of the market and at the risk to the government. So he's willing to damage your savings and your funds to try and make himself look good. The other thing he sort of semi-alluded to but didn't get into was McCarthy, in order to get the speakership, because he was not popular, he lost whatever it was, a couple dozen votes.
Yeah, I was going to say, they really had to keep going for that to make it transpire.
Right, and he had to give up the farm. So one of the things he gave up was anytime they do a vote, if it doesn't go the way anybody in his party wants, they can do a vote of no confidence in him and have him removed as speaker. So he's always.
Why on earth did you sign up for a deal like that? Like, literally, that's like at your job being like, if I make any errors at all, I just give you, free reign to just can me for, being 5 minutes late or whatever. You don't like the color of my jacket.
Yeah, no, it's not even 5 minutes late. It's
terrible.
Color of your jacket is more apt to what we're doing, right? So, yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't like your hair today, so we're going to vote to get rid of you. So that's what he's going to put himself up against. But he didn't have a choice because no one was going to vote for him. He wasn't going to get the votes. So, I mean, they're really cut off at the knees. So I think Scarborough's probably right on this. I hate to admit it. But yeah, they'll probably wait till the last minute and then it'll just fold. But it's kind of a boring thing when we get into it. But the question is what are they holding the debt ceiling for? What do they really want, right? So here's the majority report, and they are they're looking at a bit where Kevin McCarthy's talking about this, and let's talk about what is it McCarthy's really after, right? So we've used them before. So this is Sam Cedar and Emma Vigilant, and they're going to look at McCarthy here real quick.
Here is Kevin McCarthy on with Margaret Brennan.
Is defense spending on the table?
Well, look, I want to make sure we're protected in our defense spending, but I want to make sure it's effective and efficient. I want to look at every single dollar we're spending, no matter where it's being spent. I want to eliminate waste wherever it is.
But when you became speaker, you did come to that agreement I've referenced of capping 24 spending at 22 levels.
Well, look,
that would call for reductions.
No, I mean, look, you're going to tell me inside defense there's no waste others.
So defense spending
they
is
spend a lot of it. I think everything, when you look at discretionary, is sitting there. It's like every single household. It's like every single state. We shouldn't just print more money. We should balance our budget. So I want to look at every single department. Where can we become more efficient, more effective, and more accountable?
So more efficiencies in Social Security and Medicare as well.
The one thing I want to say, we take Social Security and America off the table.
All right, so that was interesting. Couple points. This is the first time they've held the debt ceiling and said, we want to look at military spending. The Republicans never want to look at military spending.
No, they don't touch that.
And
they don't even think of touching that.
No, and the other thing they kind of got into a problem with is they said, well, let's look at taking it back to 2022, the budget, right? Well, if that's true, then what he's proposing is we need to cut $78 billion from the military right now, which they're not going to do. Their whole spiel in the military is, well, we want to cut spending on woke programs, right? Liberal programs, right? The big one that they've been targeting is the U.S. military has a recruiting program that's designed to recruit more homosexual and transgender people into the military. So they're trying to make the military more inclusive, right? And they're trying to make it more inclusive for more urban kids. And so part of it is their education program. So like the Air Force Academy is still a university. West Point's still a university, right? The Naval Academy is still a university. So they want to add more thoughtful programs to attract more people from urban areas, right? The other thing about gay and transgender kids is this has just been a fact. And the U.S. military has kind of semi-known this for a long time, which is per capita, homosexual and transgender kids volunteer for the military at higher rates than most other groups. And you know why?
Why is that?
Because you have a lot of those kids that grow up in towns and rural areas where they're not accepted, and they just want to get away. And the military is an easy way to do that.
Stick it out.
Right. If you want to get away
Honestly, that was my experience growing up in sort of a smaller town, rural sort of area, not necessarily with, people that were trans or queer identifying in any way, but in general, people that were looking for some reason to get out, whether it's they didn't have grades, didn't want to do any of the kinds of things for a living that were like popular in that area, or whatever, any reason they wanted to ticket out, military service was one of the go-tos for sure.
Absolutely. And if you make the military more inclusive, then it's like, well, now I can go somewhere where I don't have to be afraid. Right. Now I can go somewhere where I can just be myself and be a soldier and do my job.
Right.
Right. The problem with a lot of the Republican agenda on this is, and they like CRT in the military and stuff, which isn't really a thing, but they get all upset about it. But it's like, if you want a military that's just all white men from, rural areas who are conservative and semi-racist, well, you're never going to fill your recruitment quota. There's just not that many of them. They're only 25% of the country. And you're not going to get all of them, right? You're going to have to recruit from other places and other people. And furthermore, don't you want a more diverse military? Because it's more ready, it's more trained, you get different ideas, different thoughts. Don't you want a military that's more educated? Or do you want a military where we're all just, a bunch of idiots that all come from the same place, right?
Well, a bunch of idiots might translate into people that don't think for themselves and might perhaps just be entirely moldable. And
yeah, but there won't be enough. There won't be enough of them. A and B. The bottom line is, it's a new technological military. How many of those guys are you going to fly the F-22 to shoot down the Chinese balloon for no reason? You have to have a lot of math. I mean, you have to be a college graduate just to be a pilot. So, I mean, yeah. So it's kind of a pointless exercise that they're going through. And McCarthy's kind of going through that too. And let me show you this. Emma has a good point here in the rest of this clip. And I think Sam does too. And we'll talk about what their opinion is.
Did you know that the Department of the Defense has failed its 5th consecutive audit and is the only, and the U.S. military is the only U.S. government agency to never pass a comprehensive audit?
Yes. Interesting, though, at the end there, we said no Social Security and Medicare off the table.
Yeah, but they say that, yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems like that's what he's saying, and he did say discretionary spending. Which is specifically not Medicare and Social Security, and so now they're having to pretend like they're going to cut the defense budget. I'm all in favor of it. They should cut whatever they can cut from that defense budget. They should do, without a doubt.
So, yeah, what do you think about that? So she's right. The defense budget has never passed an audit. The military has never passed an audit.
That figures.
They just got their 5th one under. They just got their 5th fail card in a row. So that's a good point. And then, of course, the whole point with Medicare and Medicaid and why he's kind of Medicaid, and Social Security, why he's kind of harping on that is because when the debt ceiling started, Donald Trump came out and made a statement about Republicans shouldn't cut Social Security or Medicare. Why? Because Trump knows who his base is, and those people all collect Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And so once he said that, now the party is completely divided. So we can't go back to attacking Social Security after Trump just said we shouldn't. So McCarthy is walking this tightrope, which is why he's like, well, it's off the table. Unless I can get it, and then it's on the table, but I don't think I can get it. So it's off the table, and I'm not saying that I want to do that, but, and we want to cut the military, but only the woke shit. But what is that, and how do we cut it? I don't know. But we just want to cut that. So it's all a big. They don't even know what they want. You're going into a negotiation, and you have no idea. We're going to hold the debt ceiling hostage, right? This is literally like.
Well, I gotta say, going into a negotiation and not knowing what you want is a surefire way to walk out having your ass handed to you. That is right, because you didn't even know what you were going for, so you sure aren't getting anything good coming out of it,
Well, that's the other thing too. Is this is like that, but only instead of a negotiation, I've taken hostages. And when the police negotiator says, "Okay, well, what do you want?" I'm like, "Oh, shit. I don't know."
Maybe this hostage can tell me. What do I want?
What do I want?
What do I want?
That's what the cops are like. Yeah, we're gonna have to shoot this guy. We're gonna be here forever. Oh man, so that's a whole ridiculous thing. So I want to do one more bit real quick. So here's Fox News, Maria Bartiromo, and she's got a Republican, Jody Arrington, and he's going to talk about the cuts that he wants for the debt ceiling and the Republicans want on Fox News.
Joining me now to talk more about that is Texas Congressman, member of the House Ways and Means and Joint Committee, Economic Committee, Jody Arrington. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
You bet.
What are your hopes in terms of cuts in spending?
Well, my hopes are that we will not continue down this unsustainable path that we're on, which will lead to a debt crisis, which will be far worse than the pandemic, probably any other crisis we've faced. We have to rein in spending. We have to rein in spending. We have to reduce the debt, and we have to act responsibly and live within our means, like every American family, quite frankly, like every state and local government does. And this debt ceiling
Okay. Oh, we're gonna watch more of this because he gets way stupider.
Oh, good.
So we have a debt. Did you know we had a debt crisis? We have a debt crisis. We have to rein in our spending because the American government's like a household, not a government with taxing power. It's like a household.
Yeah, if my household had the ability to give itself a raise on an annual basis by however much I felt like it.
Yeah,
it doesn't work quite as simply as that. I know what we're simplifying,
right.
But you know what I'm saying.
Right, but he misses that other. Well, we can raise taxes if that's what we need to do. But nope. We got to cut. We got to cut. We got to cut in our spending, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, what does he want to cut? Because he hasn't gotten to that. He's just saying we have a problem. We got to cut spending. Skips right past. Well, we could just raise taxes. We could just make tax the income tax what it was in the 1970s, and the highest marginal rate for people making whatever it is, $1 million or $2 million, whatever it is, right, would be 70% of their income. And that would solve a lot of problems. We could cut capital gains and make it ordinary income. We could do all these things, but nope, we skip that. We have to be responsible and cut. But what does he want to cut? Let's see if he gets to it. Come on, Jody. You can do it. You're from Texas.
Negotiation, like others in the past, is an opportunity to put a check on that debt and to include fiscal reforms. And there's plenty of waste, plenty of bloat, plenty of unnecessary spending throughout this federal government that has grown exponentially over the last couple of years.
But what are they, Jody? Come on, man.
Under this president, and that's my hope, that the outcome will be a responsible one.
Well, I mean, look, the Republicans have talked about going back to 2022 spending levels. If you go back to 2022 spending levels, that is a decline in defense defense spending by $75 billion. Are you prepared to make that decline?
Oh, there's plenty of non-defense discretionary spending to cut.
So that's a no. I made that point just a minute ago. We take it back. We could cut defense by $75 billion. Well, there's other things we can cut. I don't know. We're not cutting that. Daddy still needs his guns because we're a household. So let's talk about how we can cut other stuff. You know, we can cut Junior's medical care.
By the way, we've increased discretionary spending by $500 billion since 19. So, and then there's one-time spending, like there's $100 billion in unspent COVID monies. There's, the cancellation of student debt, which is could be as high as $1 trillion.
Okay, now that's a bullshit thing right there. So, student debt, even if you cancel it, student debt is already considered paid for. So it does not affect the budget in any way. You could cancel all the student debt, whatever it is, 1.5 or 6 or 7 trillion, whatever it is. It will not affect the overall debt in this country. It's already considered spent. It's already baked into the cake. So if he's talking about lowering that debt clock she's got on the side, canceling student debt won't do it. So that's bullshit. This guy clearly doesn't have a fucking clue how any of this works. But he's from Texas, so, we got to work with it.
So right now, we have people not working. As you know, this is a problem for the economy. It also is a problem for financing Social Security.
No, it's not, because we just increased jobs by over 500,000, where the expected was 188. So we're doing good.
Security and Medicare, and we need to put work incentives in place. That alone will create billions of dollars in savings, more tax revenue, and more support for these safety nets that our seniors.
I didn't understand that. We put work incentives in place, and that'll save billions. It'll cost billions, but it'll raise revenue.
Yeah,
ideally.
I wasn't following what his train of thought was there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he just.
Or did he say particularly what it was? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's just reading out the script at this point.
It might be just some random script of agenda points or whatever. He's just supposed to randomly try to string together. I don't know.
To relying on. There are plenty of things outside of defense, and that's what we aim to focus on.
But we're not cutting defense. No, we're not going to mention Social Security or Medicare, because those are no-nos now that Trump said something. But what are we going to cut? Food stamps? That'll save what? Fucking nothing. That's a cheap program. Oh, you know what we cut? Public education. That's what we always cut. Yeah, that'll be good. So anyway, that's the whole point, is they don't know what they're cutting. They don't know what they want.
Those teachers' salaries, they can afford to take a hit.
Yeah. Anyway, but that's the point. They're doing the debt ceiling thing, and what do you want? Basically, we just want to look like we're doing something. And rally up our base. That's it. What are you actually doing? I don't know. We don't know. We're going to go after wokeism. CRT, or I don't know.
Right.
We want to change Potato Head back to Mr. Potato Head. Stop making him transgender. Sexualize Oreos. Or M&Ms. Sorry, my bad. I don't know. It's always some weird shit with these people. I don't know what it is. So that's that with that. So the last fun little news thing. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, the inventor of Jewish space lasers that cause wildfires. Yeah, she said that. That's a real thing. Oh yeah, she's a nut bar. Total nut bar. QAnon.
You
person.
really just can't make this stuff up. Like, sometimes the news, like, you look at the news and you're like, what?
No, she's,
really?
Yeah. It's totally out there. Anyway, she was, because of a bunch of anti-Semitic things she said and did, when the Democrats were in charge of the House, she wasn't allowed to be on any committees. But Kevin McCarthy...
You go, not you.
Yeah.
You stay right there.
But then Kevin McCarthy, when he was, like we mentioned earlier, was desperate trying to get the speakership for the House, and he couldn't get the votes. She sided with him. He promised her spots on a bunch of key committees. One of them is the Oversight Committee for the House of Representatives. So she's on that. She had her first day there. And for somebody who believes in Jewish space lasers and, whatnot, she nailed it. So here's Anna Kasparian, who's going to introduce this, but this is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think this is her first day on the Oversight Committee.
About the misuse.
Oh, and they were talking about misuse of the COVID funds.
Managed to embarrass herself yet again, this time during a House Oversight Committee hearing on the misuse of COVID-related federal aid. Now, she's very concerned about the misuse of that federal aid, and there's a very specific issue she wants to touch on. Take it away, Marjorie Greene.
Can you tell me how much COVID cash went to CRT?
CRT?
Critical race theory in education. It's a racist curriculum used to teach children that somehow their white skin is not equal to black skin and other things.
It's not what CRT is, but okay.
Things in education.
Yeah. No, I do not know that, but I do know that there's provisions that the federal funds generally are not used. They're supposed to be used for curriculum.
Oh,
that's a state.
Oh, Mr. Dodaro, I have to tell you, in Illinois, that they receive $5.1 billion at an elementary school there that used it for equity and diversity. So it's being used for these things.
Okay.
Oh no, we taught those children not to be hateful children.
So here's what happened. First up, CRT is critical race theory. It's a legal theory. So unless your 5-year-old is going to law school, they are not learning CRT. It's unless they're getting their master's in social studies, they're not learning CRT. It's just anyway, doesn't matter. They turn it into a whole big anything that deals with talking about race or discrimination in this country must be CRT. That's their whole spiel. Anyway, that's not the key. The key is you missed the key thing she said. She's talking to this guy. So the guy is he's the comptroller at the Fed. Okay, a comptroller, for kids, in case you don't know, a comptroller is like an accountant, right? You give him the money, he disperses it. Make sure the taxes are paid, make sure everybody is paid. Balances the books, reports it. That's it.
Right.
That's what he does, right? He's got to follow whatever rules or guidelines are set for him. Or her, whatever. But that's what they do. Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't seem to understand what a comptroller is because she's asking him, well, did any of this go to CRT? He doesn't distribute it to programs. He distributes it to people or groups. He doesn't know how they spend it. That's not his job. Right? This group needs this amount of money for this, for this thing. He doesn't really know what it is or what they're doing with it. He's just, give him the money. Make sure it all balances on the books and it was correct. So she doesn't seem to understand that. That's why he's confused. She asked him CRT. He's like, I don't know what that is. How would he know? He's the comptroller. He's not making decisions. He's just distributing the money. And so when she asks him about teaching this stuff, he's like, I don't know what that is. But he's like, we can't distribute money to specific educational programs. We just distribute it to groups, right? And then she does her little, you don't even know. It was distributed for CRT. But here's what I love. And I think you missed it. So I'm going to play it real quick one more time. Because I want you to catch on this.
That used it for equity and diversity.
Wait, hang on.
It received $5.1 billion at an elementary school there that used it for equity and diversity.
One elementary school in Illinois got $5.1 billion for an equity and diversity program. That's what she's claiming.
I would love it if my school got $5.1 billion for anything at all.
It's so stupid.
That would be such a good day at my school. I'm not going to lie.
That's what. How's your school?
One school.
What? Yeah, bullshit. She's so full. She's so stupid. One school got, okay, so the next door elementary school, hey guys, how's it going? Well, we had to do a bake sale to raise enough money for soccer uniforms for the kids. How about you guys? Well, we just funded the F-22 who shot down the Chinese spy balloon for the United States government. And we now own the franchise to all the Mission Impossible movies. And we own Star Wars. $5.1 billion.
And we gave every elementary student in the whole building all of their college tuition.
Right.
Factoring in what the inflated rates will be in that many years, because we just got that one.
Right. Our lowest paid teacher makes $5 million a year.
And every teacher in the building, because they now make that, is retiring in June.
So that was the big joke with her, is like $5.1 billion for what's good. And you're one of the heads now of the oversight committee? And you can't even get that. And you're arguing about CRT.
That was an oversight.
Oh, man. Well, furthermore, it's like you're yelling at the comptroller who's sitting there going, I don't know any of it. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't work in politics. You guys just tell me to distribute the money. I distribute it. That's all. I don't know. But anyway, what it was the 5.1 went to the state of Illinois, and it was for reopening schools after COVID. And so they dumped that into making the schools safer. And one of the side notes was they wanted to include equity and diversity to make sure that poor students or minority students weren't in positions where it was too difficult for them to go back to school. That's what that program was. That's what she's bitching about. Because heaven forbid minority and poor kids get to go back to school safely with the other kids. That's what this whole thing was about. But she confused it as we gave $5.1 billion to one grade school so they could tell white people how horrible they are. Which isn't a thing that fucking happens. I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous. Anyway, I mean, you're a teacher. I don't know if you had anything to add to that, because that's just...
Oh God, no. Let's skip it. It's too much to even
swallow. But that's
right. It's just all ridiculous.
But those are the people deciding your budget, so kind of makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Oh boy, kind of makes me feel like hiding. I'm not gonna lie.
All right. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll come back and get the rest of this done. Here, because we talked last time about the video was Dave Ramsey's scam, and we argued about it a little bit. And Charlie Munger actually kind of makes the point, I think, really well here. I caught this clip of him, and
right. So let's stop. For those at home who don't know who Charlie Munger is, in a nutshell, Charlie Munger is I will say in the simplest way possible. Everybody knows who Warren Buffett is. A lot of people don't necessarily know Charlie Munger, but he is another, key voice in Berkshire Hathaway that works with Warren Buffett.
Mm-hmm.
Very brilliant investor, very, very successful businessman. And so when he's got something to say, it's worth, pausing to listen, because his advice, economically and financially speaking, is usually pretty valuable.
And oftentimes I like him because he tends to be a little bit more of a lefty. Not, I don't think intentionally, but just because that's where the evidence leads. And so I think he just tends to follow the evidence where it goes, which is what I like about him. It's the kind of guy I trust, is the kind of guy who just, this is where the evidence leads. Right? So he's going to make an analysis here about people offering you financial stuff online or on books or whatever, promising to make you rich or whatever it is, which we got into last time about Dave Ramsey's crew promising to make people rich. But he's going to do this, and I think this is really good. So here he is.
Yep.
Trading. And then there are people on the TV, another wonderful place. And they say, I have this book that will teach you how to make 300% a year. And all you have to do is pay for shipping, and I will mail it to you. How likely is it the person who had suddenly found a way to make 300% a year would be trying to sell books on the internet to you? And it's ridiculous. And yet, I've described modern commerce. And the people who do this all day think they're useful citizens. The advertising agents that invent the lingo. And so in insurance, they say, the two people who shifted from Geico to the Glotz Insurance Company saved $400 each. What they don't tell you is there are only two such people in the whole United States, and they were both nuts. But they mislead you on purpose. And I get tired of it. And I don't think it's right that we deliberately mislead people as much as we do. Let me tell you another story that I think is an interesting one about the modern life. But this goes back to a different time. And this man has this wonderful horse. And it's just a marvelous horse. It's got an easy gait, and good looking and everything. It just works wonderfully. But also occasionally just gets so he's dangerous and vicious and causes enormous damage and trouble and breaks arms and legs for his rider and so on. And he goes to the vet and say, what can I do about this horse? The vet says, that's a very easy problem, and I'm glad to help you. Says, what should I do? And the man says, the next time your horse is behaving well, sell it.
So there's Charlie Munger slamming down some wisdom on us, because that's what they do.
I really do love the way that connects to what we were saying on another episode. I love to read books about personal development and personal finance, and I love to participate in, workshops and things that will teach within those areas. But, the point that somebody is going to try to tell you about what result you can get from these varying things is, that's problematic, and the 300% thing is really crazy. When they're saying something like that's not even, and that's not even a result. Like, maybe one person got a result like that, right? Like, that result in and of itself is crazy, right?
Right. But,
that result in itself.
But the number's not the important point. The important point is he's saying, look, if you're worth millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, right, because you're just that good of a finance person or an investor or whatever, then you don't need to be selling books or financial programs to make money. You already know how to make money, right? So if somebody's saying, well, look, you can be worth millions like me, just buy my book or my program, it's already bullshit. That was his point. Because if this person was so freaking good, they wouldn't need you to buy their book. They'd be on a beach earning 20%. Right?
Right.
So anybody who's telling you that instantly, is kind of full of shit. Which is kind of our whole point when we make fun of Dave Ramsey and these other guys. It's like, well, why would you be selling these things? Why would you need to do this if you know so much, if you're so good at this? Right? The other point was with the horse is, and I think the horse point is great, is we'll sell the horse when the horse is acting good, when the horse looks good, right? Don't tell them about all the problems, which is the same thing these guys do, which is, these are all of our successes, but we never ever tell you about our failures, which might be immense. But we don't trot those people out in front of you. We only trot the horse out when the horse is behaving.
Right.
So it's the same kind of gig. And given that, we're going to do a cage match. So for those of you who've never seen our show, a cage match works like this. Alacias does ringside commentary, and Alacias tries to guess what the other person's going to say, and then the two of us together try to see if we can out-financial plan them. So it's usually, so we're going to watch Dave Ramsey's crew take a call here. What is the call? It's this woman owes $32,000 on a car that's only worth $18,000. So she's underwater in her car. So you ready to go? Cage match. Bum, bum, bum.
Courtney joins us up next in Jackson, Tennessee. Courtney, welcome to the Ramsey Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure. How can we help today?
So I'm like super upside down on my car, and I am in baby step number 2, and it's actually my highest debt, but it's causing me so much trouble. Not the vehicle, but the payment itself. It's just outrageous. So I'm trying to figure out what to do as far as, my vehicle goes.
How much do you owe on the car?
I owe about $32,000.
Okay, and what is it worth right now?
$18,000.
Oof. How did it get to this point? What'd you buy the car for?
After interest and stuff, it was $49,000.
So you paid $49,000 for it. What was it worth at the time you bought it? You think it was worth $49,000?
I don't remember. I want to say it was like 35 or so, and the interest is, I think, interest is what's like got it all messed up.
What's your payment and what's your interest rate?
I pay $688 a month.
Oof.
Yeah, it's rough.
What's
the interest rate is 15.12%.
Why did you get such a terrible interest rate?
Oh, wow. So let's that's tricky. So the car, so she's says it's worth 38, or she owes 38. Was it 38? 32, and she owes 18. Sorry.
Okay, wait, let's get that number again. So she owes 18.
She owes 32.
But she owes 32.
The car's worth 18 if she sold it.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So she's 14K underwater. Now she's saying, well, maybe it was the interest rate or whatnot, but then she said she initially bought it at 49, right? And she said it was probably only worth 35 when she bought it. So she was already 14 underwater when she bought it, if that's true.
Like, that purchase doesn't even make a lot of sense to me, honestly. Just, like, literally her recap of the purchase is pretty confusing. But
Unless she bought a bunch of, like, warranties and other shit that was unnecessary.
Or would she, could it be one of those things, and maybe she's not saying it correctly, where she was underwater on something and rolled it in?
No, I don't think so. I think she's saying she bought it like that.
That she literally bought it for too much?
Yeah. when she's saying she's paying $680 a month. I don't know. Let's hear some more because this is not adding up.
Yeah, let's see if she tells us more.
Yeah. Let's see what she says.
Honestly, I'm not sure because this was the first vehicle I ever financed.
So this is the first one. So this was not a different car that she rolled into this.
Before, like after that, I got other debt, but before the car, I had like $3,000 in student loans, and that was like all that was on my credit.
Oh my goodness! What's the term for this? How long is the loan for?
6 years.
6 years.
What kind of car is it?
A 2018 Volkswagen Tiguan.
Okay, how long have you had it?
8 months, and that's how how low the value has gone in 8 months.
It's gone down.
Wait.
You bought...
Now none of this makes sense.
Right, because if you bought it for $49, how is it you got it down to $32 in 8 months when your payments are $600 a month?
Yeah, over $688, it's almost $7. But even then, it's you haven't even paid
7 times 8, like that's less than $6,000 that you paid in payments.
But you paid down $17,000.
Right, and you should be down more like at 42, give or take.
Oh no, you should be closer. She should be closer to 45 at this point.
Right, sure. I'm even playing the optimist here, but like not even doing hardcore math, but like she should be still above 40 is my point, not in the low 30s.
No, she shouldn't. Yeah, she should still be well above 40. So I think she's got this all mixed up. But let's assume the car is underwater. Let's just go with that. She's probably got the numbers fucked up, but let's just assume it's underwater. Okay, so let's see where they go from here. And then you
bought
can
it a
jump
little
in.
too high priced.
Maybe I bought it, but I was just thinking, wow, it's decreased in value, I guess.
Who sold this car to you?
The dealership I worked for.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was it like a coworker that's a friend, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it is a friend, but I don't work in the sales department. I work in the service department. But yeah, it was a friend, and I'm not sure, if they
have you talked to them about this?
I have.
What did they say?
And I think that.
Well, I don't know. Do you have a thought of what they're going to tell her to do here? This is a weird one.
This is a super weird one. I mean, has she even said an actual question yet? Is it just a what should I do about this car question?
Yeah, I think
she's
just stressed about the payments. My thought was, well, first, I mean, if you're working at a dealership, we've gone through this before. A lot of dealerships will reimburse you for the car if you buy it from the dealership. Maybe she just hasn't applied for that program.
Right. I was going to say, if it's the dealership she works at, I thought they had some sort of like a program where she gets a stipend for her, or I don't know if they call it a stipend, but you know what I mean? Some sort of a reimbursement or stipend for the vehicle situation.
Yeah, because they can get deductions, but I some do, some don't. I don't. Maybe hers doesn't, but I would think they do. And if her friend sold it to her, maybe they thought that's what was going to happen. In the interest of this, though, I mean, she works for the dealership, so you don't want to ruffle too many feathers, right? But I don't know what they're going to suggest. I can tell you.
Well, I'm not really sure what they're going to suggest either, because like she also hasn't posed much of a question. We haven't heard if she didn't say what her income is exactly either, right? She didn't.
No, not
she's
yet.
told us about this car, but I don't think she's given us details about the rest of her picture, so that makes me not sure what they'll say. But I can't help but wonder if one of them is going to throw out there the idea of maybe she could get them to take it back. It's the dealership she works for, and like, I don't know.
I don't know that. Something tells me they're not going to do that. I would say this is things that I would like if she were coming into my office, right? I mean, I'd have a lot more questions about what this is. I want
to know more about her financial situation aside from the vehicle too. So I don't know what they're going to offer because I'm not sure even what I would offer different from them because I'm not sure anything else about her picture yet.
Well, she could go get she's paying 15% interest on a car, which seems really high. But it doesn't
She
just
might
seem,
have
it
one of
is
those
extremely high.
probably in-house financing stuff too, which is like the most expensive sort of way to finance a vehicle. She could probably get something better even if she doesn't have a ton of credit, like at a local bank or credit union or something.
Well, I mean, and if she owes a 32, I mean, she could give a personal loan, which would probably be 10 or 12%, which would save her some money. But like you said, probably the easier thing to do would be go to a bank and say, hey, can I refinance this car loan for a more reasonable interest rate? That would be an easy solution to at least get her interest down and her payment down. The other thing is I don't know. She's in Tennessee. I don't know what the rule is there, but most states have what's called a lemon law, and she's only had the car for 8 months. So under that law, I mean, if you feel you got cheated or something, you could return the vehicle and void the contract.
However, that's really Harry being her employer to go lemon law.
Yeah.
Your employer, you know.
Well, it might be something she can go to her manager and say, hey, this is too much for me and blah, blah, blah. Is there something we can do that's reasonable or fair?
That's kind of in alignment with the, hey, will you guys take this thing back from me?
Right, and get me
almost, you know?
If you're not in her position, you could, lemon law is one thing. Talk to an attorney because any contract is like a loan contract is still a contract, and you can contest it. And in this case, 15.12% on a car loan is super, super high. And if she feels she got cheated, they could potentially rescind the contract, and she'd just be out the money. She's out, but she'd get the car gone, and she'd get that, she wouldn't have that underwater car and all that debt anymore. Right. So there's legal ramifications you can do, and you just call the local courthouse, or get a referral from the local bar association, whatever, this Tennessee State Bar, and just say, hey, do you have any attorneys that can handle this? Because they could probably get it, either rescinded or renegotiated or something. And it might be worth the money to do that. Especially if you're in that kind of 14,000 underwater. Right. Yeah, it just sounds to me like she kind of got screwed on this, and she needs to maybe go talk to an attorney and figure out what her rights are and what she can do. And she might want to go talk to a couple banks and see if they can refinance. Because banks will buy the loan if they can give her a lower interest rate, because they'll take it. But yeah.
So I have this other. Geez, maybe they'll go there. They've told people to do this sort of stuff in the past, and I'm wondering if they might possibly go to the place of, hey, you've got this down to 32,000, so it's worth 18. And then ask her, is that the Kelly Blue Book? Where's that price come from? Or is that just what you can get from it at the dealership? Because if you try to sell at private sale, you could probably get more and then go take out a loan for the difference at your credit union for, a loan of $6,000 or $10,000 or whatever the difference is, and then you pay that off. Right? I'm
so pass it on to somebody else, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of
I feel like it's one of two things. It's either maybe you can get them to take it back, or I think possibly the second option I offered could be the two routes they would go.
Fuck somebody else over.
Well,
dump it on somebody else, right?
Well, I don't know if it's the fuck somebody else over so much as it is dump the vehicle on somebody else, because they wouldn't be buying it for 49,000. They'd be probably buying it for 20 or something,
Yeah, but they'd still be buying it underwater. It's basically that argument. It's just what Charlie Munger just did. Sell the horse when the horse is acting good. And then let them find out that the horse is actually insane. After the fact. Oh, let's see if they do that. Let's see if that's where they go. I think that the better solution is to go see if you can refinance or talk to a lawyer and see if you have options. I think that would be the way I'd go, but
Pretty much, they're telling me, like, at the time, like, the market was just so messed up on cars.
Have you had any like frank conversations with them, like asking kind of like what was the value of the car when you sold it to me?
I haven't, but that is a good idea. I'm actually on my lunch break right now, so I could do that when I go back in.
There's no way that car was worth $49,500 when you bought it, which is how much you're paying with all these
I
payments.
know. And actually, it was like $55 after I put I did get all the warranties and things on it, but.
How long have you worked?
You can return that warranty, right, and get some money back out of this?
Yeah, I could return the warranty.
How much would that give you back?
Probably about maybe $5,000.
Okay. And how much money do you have in the bank?
I have about $2,000 in my checking account, and other than that, I just have $1,000 for emergency fund.
Okay.
How long have you worked for this dealership?
About a year now.
Do you feel like in general they typically have pretty good integrity?
Most of the time, yeah, and my coworker, he's actually a friend of mine, and you know,
I don't know where they're going with all this. Who gives a shit about the dealership?
She might be going to if they have integrity, maybe you can get them to take it back. It might be that actual route.
Well, but first you need to find out if you have any rights before you go ask.
Okay, right now we're talking about what advice they're going to give, not whether yours is better or not. Right. I think they're going to. At least I think she might be trying to steer toward the road. If they have integrity, maybe you can just get out of this and they'll take the vehicle back. Something.
Let's hope so.
Or some variation of that idea.
Yeah. I don't know what that does, though. I don't know why they would and take the loss for no reason.
Don't screw me over at 15% interest.
That's what I was thinking too. Is like I feel like I've been screwed over on it, and you know, financially, that's a big.
I want to know how much this guy made off this deal.
Yeah, probably a lot. And you know, I'm 22, so I'm not trying to be stuck in this for 7 years.
Ooh. Okay, so the $18,000 value that you say your car has, like, is that from Kelley Blue Book? Is that somebody at your job that said that?
KBB.
Is that private party or trade-in?
Yes, that's private party.
Okay, I'm going to still do some more homework and research every single place that buys used cars. And that's online, that's local dealerships, to see how much you could get for this. Maybe even try listing it and see if you can get more for it.
And this may not be the best advice, but if I'm in your shoes, I'm going to my boss and I'm saying, here's the situation. How is this car that I just bought 8 months ago for this price now worth 18? And kind of walk through the situation with your coworker. Because my hope is that as your employer, there's some sliver of heart there that maybe they'll even consider buying it back from you
at a higher rate.
Right, closer to what you paid for it.
Right. Yeah.
There's going to be a stupid tax on this either way. The only other option here to get out from under this thing soon is if you went to your local credit union and get a personal loan for $14,000 to cover the difference.
Right.
And now you're $14,000 in debt instead of $32,000 in debt at a much lower interest rate.
And I have other debt, but it's $7,800.
That didn't make any sense, but you called that one. You called it. She was right. You called that one.
I called it on both of the options. They literally said both of the things that I said that they were going to. I'm going to actually put this in the bank for me on a double win. I've never claimed a double win, but I'm claiming a double win
You got a double knockout.
on a call that was hard.
Yep. He both said
That
try
was
to.
PAO.
He said try to pass it off. She said ask your employer and see if they'll take it back. Going to get
I feel so good about myself right now.
Yeah, well, I don't see his point. I'm going to go get a personal loan for $14,000 and do what? Pay off that portion of the car so it's not underwater? That doesn't make any sense.
No. You missed the part where, because they were both overlapping each other with the two things they were saying. Before he said that, he said that she needed to be looking into private party sale instead of the Kelley Blue Book stuff and see if you could get more out of it.
Right.
Then going to a credit union to get a loan for the difference. Maybe it's a $14,000 loan or something like that, personal loan. So you're only paying off a $14,000 loan as opposed to this gargantuous loan that she's been on the hook for.
Right.
That's what I think. 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 That's what I think that was, and literally just what I said, used different numbers, but yeah.
As opposed to, why don't we see if we can get this resolved, either legally or through refinancing. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know that there's a great solution to that. I don't think either of theirs were any good. Because if she goes to her boss, then her boss might be sitting there thinking, oh, fuck, maybe she causes a problem. Maybe we should just fire her now. And she's 22, so she won't fight back. As opposed to, I don't know, I would say maybe go talk to somebody at the courthouse or somebody who's an attorney who can at least tell you what your rights are and what you could do. Because the other thing is let's say she does challenge them and says, hey, look, I want to get this contract rescinded and get out of it, right? Then the next thing she needs to know is, okay, well, if they fire her over that, then now she has a lawsuit for wrongful termination, which will look really bad on the dealership because we screwed a 22-year-old and oversold her a car, and then we fired her to cover that up. So she actually is a pretty decent legal position here to defend her rights. And I think that that's where she should start first, is not bucking anybody or confronting them or saying anything. Just first, let's figure out what my rights are and what I can potentially do. Because the lemon llama situation might not apply to the dealership directly. It might apply just to the salesman. And if you're the dealership, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to fire her for starting waves? Are you going to fire the salesman for ripping people off? You're probably not going to fire her because that'll look bad and you can get sued, as opposed to you could fire him for screwing her over. So there's lots of positions she could be in. There just needs to be a lot more information. And she doesn't even seem to know the numbers correctly. So I don't know. I'm not even going to call that a win. I'm just going to call it it's not even a draw. It's just, they just didn't decide. They just didn't analyze anything. There was nothing. There was no actual thought process for them. It was just.
Well, and in all fairness, she wasn't really posing a financial sort of planning question. It was kind of more of a, what do I do about, how do I get out of type of question too. So that's not really the best question for you to cage match on strategy, because it's just a one-hit thing. However, this was a really great one for me. I'm going to put that out there because this is not a standard advice thing, and I nailed it twice.
On the little bit of financial strategy that was involved there, trying to saying, hey, pawn it off on somebody else and then take a loan is not really a plan, because maybe you can't pawn it off for the same amount. Right?
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate, though, that, people have a vehicle and sell it all the time, and if she's capable of selling it to get out from under such a huge payment, that's a great thing. But it is a wild card. Who knows if you can do that or not?
Right. And on top of that, so the one is maybe you could do this, and the other one was you could go ask your boss, and maybe they'll help you out. They're not really solutions. They're just, you need to go beg or see if you can screw somebody else over. That's really all they had.
See, what I don't understand is how you think that's screwing somebody else over. People buy cars private party all the time, and if somebody has $20,000 to buy a car, and they buy that car used, she didn't say the car didn't work. She just can't afford it.
No, but she's selling the car for more than it's worth, which, fine, whatever, but she just got screwed for that situation, and that's why she's selling it. So she's doing the same thing to somebody else that was done to her, which is causing her this problem. So there's a hypocrisy.
She was probably not looking at a private party, whatever situation. She was probably looking at what she could get at the dealership for it, honestly.
Well, the dealership took it for more money. That's on them. Right. But that's not what he was suggesting. He was suggesting she try to pawn it off on somebody else.
But I'm saying, when she said that it was worth $18,000, that's not like a hard and fast number. That's like an estimate, and it's probably, there's multiple different kinds of estimates. There's what you could get private sale, which is usually a range, not usually just one number, right? And then there's like what a dealership would give you, which is usually a lower number. And what I'm saying is we don't know which one she gave. That might be what the dealership would give her. Private party,
Sure,
it might
but
be something that could get you more.
that's not what was suggested. The suggestion was see if you can pawn it off on somebody else for a higher number. That was what was suggested. Right. That was kind of what he was suggesting. Because she could turn
But
around.
it doesn't necessarily mean the other person's getting screwed over. The other person might be able to afford to buy a $20,000 car.
That's not worth $20,000. So yeah, they got screwed over. I mean, that's just a fact. They bought a car, they overpaid. She overpaid. Now she's going to make somebody else overpay. That was sort of the deal. I'm not saying don't do that. I don't have a moral compass on that sort of thing. But my attitude is it's kind of like, doesn't really solve the problem though of you still are underwater in this shit. Unless you can get $32,000 for an $18,000 car, it doesn't solve your problem.
Oh, I can't imagine it's got a range like that.
That's why
its range might be, you can get anywhere from 15 to 20,000 off of this thing is probably what the range is, you know?
Right. But it doesn't solve your problem. And furthermore, it is kind of a little underhanded to like, I'm going to sell you the car for 20, even though it's only worth 18. Because who's she going to sell it to? Probably somebody her age who doesn't know that. She's not going to sell it to somebody who's experienced and knows what they're doing, because they're not going to pay that kind of money. That's my point. Anyway, kind of a weak one, but yeah, no, good job for you, man. Knocked them both. You got them. All right, so let's. All right, so we're going to do round 2, and then we'll wrap up here. So round C, this is another Dave Ramsey, and woman says she put her daughter in a financial bind. Let's see what this one is. All right. Cage match. Dun, dun, dun.
Kimberly is going to start off this hour in Seattle. Hi, Kimberly. Welcome to the Ramsey Show.
Hi, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Sure. How can Jade and I help?
Okay, so my question is, I have a 20-year-old daughter. This past year, before I was following your teachings, I assisted her with a down payment of 3% to purchase a home for stability reasons in Kansas. And the payment is about 40% of her take-home pay. She does have a roommate, so, the amounts are substantially lower. But I'm wondering what my financial obligation is to her moving forward, since I did, quite honestly, pressure her into purchasing this house. I'm just wondering what is my obligation?
Wow, I got some fucking weird ones today, didn't we?
This is a super weird question. So I do have to say, though,
Well, it's a moral question, not a
this
financial.
mother recognizes that she did bad in pressuring the kid, and I also kind of want to reach through the computer and smack that woman for pressuring her kid to buy some place to stabilize herself on something as little as 3% down, eating up 40% of her income. That's, my budget ideas and Ramsey's are not the same, but 40% of your income that's really a lot.
Well, 3%.
She's got a roommate, thank goodness, but still.
Yeah, 3% was what the mother said she put down. The question but she's asking what her obligation is on this, and it's kind of an interesting question. Because my first question would be, well, is your daughter struggling to meet, make ends meet every month? Is that an issue?
Right.
Is that because if she's got the roommate paying half and she's paying half, then
she's not in such a horrible spot.
she might not.
However, it's not a great long-term thing because you don't probably want to have a roommate for the entire duration of that loan. But at least for the time being, she's probably fine.
Right.
And the other question is, okay, you pressured your daughter into getting this home, but did your daughter qualify for and get this loan on their own, or are you somehow on the loan? Because that changes the answer to what your obligation is.
Right. No, absolutely.
Technically, your obligation isn't anything, but you should feel bad because that was a crappy thing to do. That's my opinion.
I don't know that it was a crappy thing to do. It might have been ill-informed. But what's the worst thing that happens? Let's say the daughter doesn't want the house anymore, or she's saying it's too tight to pay the mortgage every month, then you sell the house.
Right. And maybe if she's in a position while it's selling and she's struggling to make those payments, maybe because you realize the hand you had in it, maybe for a few months you're trying to help her make sure she can pay that while it's selling. That might be.
Yeah. And it depends on your relationship with your daughter and everything. But right now it's one of those things where, look, if the daughter's not unhappy in the house and she's making the payments, I mean, is this something are we worrying about this? Is this something is this an issue yet that we should be jumping into? I mean, that would be my question.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if we're going to get more of that information. Let's tune in and see if it tells us any more about that.
Yeah. I need to know more about the daughter situation then.
Why did you do that? I need to understand why you put her in such a precarious situation. She's at 40% with the requirement of a roommate, and you said you did it for stability purposes. Help me understand.
Well, without making it a long, drawn-out conversation, she did not have the best upbringing, so she has chosen to make some of the same mistakes that I made, and she gets herself into situations where she is living with a boyfriend and dependent upon them, and then when the situation goes south, she ends up having to find a new place to live.
And is the house in your name?
House she can't afford.
No, the house is in her name.
I said, so getting her to buy a house she can't afford is better?
Yeah, it's not.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have even paused on that because we still don't have nearly enough information. But I'm sorry, this was just really dumb on this parent's part. So because I don't agree with my child's lifestyle choices of living with their significant other and then it not working out and then them not having a place to live, I decided it was better for them to buy a whole house that's too expensive for them because that's more stable than the other thing. It's equally unstable for different reasons, really.
Well, I'm going to forgive her because I think she didn't understand. Because even she was saying, I didn't follow Dave Ramsey's method or anything. She probably didn't know much about what she was doing. She just thought if she has a place that's her place, then she won't be dependent on some guy. I, on the other hand, knowing now that she's got the place, it's too expensive, she has to have a roommate, I'll bet you $5 million the roommate is her boyfriend. If that's her pattern, that she lives with boyfriend after boyfriend, the roommate is the boyfriend, the current boyfriend.
Well, then I guess at the very least, if things don't work out, he's the one that's got to get kicked to the curb and she just needs to find another roommate.
Right.
I mean, so I guess it puts her in the upper hand in terms of if the relationship doesn't work out, but it's still a terrible thing to get your kid to do financially, especially what sounds like, did they say how old this kid is? It seems like
20.
This is...
She said he's 20.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, especially at a relatively young age.
On top of that, it's like if there's some problem with a boyfriend or he's abusive or whatever, I'm not saying that that's the case, but she might be in a position where she can't kick him out because she can't afford the mortgage. As opposed to before, even though it was a bad situation, she could go stay with friends or something. She could leave.
Right. There's nothing like being economically tethered to a person that you don't want to be.
Right. So yeah, not a well thought out situation. I would say this though. I mean, it still comes back to, what does the daughter want to do? Does she want to keep the house? Is everything going okay? If it's not going okay, then maybe we should talk about selling the house. Right? She can use the equity or whatever. Maybe buy an apartment or something more feasible that she can afford by herself. Right? Maybe buy something small, like a 1-bedroom somewhere or something. It's Kansas. I'm sure we can find something. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know that the purchase of the house was necessarily a poor decision, other than the fact that it probably wasn't the right time.
I think, honestly, I think that she was probably too young to be making a purchase like that. That's just my opinion.
Well, especially if she didn't. Especially if
I'm
she's
in
been.
favor.
Go ahead.
What?
Especially if she's been pressured.
Right. I'm in favor of, buying a home young, and you can pay it off young and set yourself up well. But sounds like 20. I think that's too young. Like, have a couple of apartments first. Make sure you can actually save a down payment. That's one thing that Ramsey says. Now, I'm not as hardcore about how much as they are, but I do agree with something he says when he's like, if you can't save a down payment, you're probably not ready to be buying a place. Like, if you can't save anything, to be putting in your own money for it, you might need to wait to get yourself financially collected a little bit more first,
Sure. I mean, but like I said, why don't we stick with something simpler, like an apartment or a small condo? Why do we jump in right into a house? I mean, she's 20. Okay, well, I guess that's our show today. Good show, Lacey. Where can everybody find you?
All right, you can find me at mysensewithsense.com for blog posts, information about workshops and courses. If you want to write in for more information, or if you want to send us something to Cage Match, because let's be honest, these clips were a little weird today. Dave must have had a weird week.
Yeah.
Or topic suggestions, if you want to invite yourself to come on and argue with us, we might be open.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely.
You can go ahead and email us. Where's that at, Duncan?
It's at gossipfinance80.com or at outlook.com. It's down below. We look forward to hearing you. And please like and subscribe. And thanks for joining us. And we will catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.